Okay, so let me give you my first impression about this controller. As you can see right here, this is the DDCS version 4.1. The first thing you will notice is that we have the possibility of reading G-code straight from the PC using the Ethernet port and the USB flash drive. You can see those ports right behind here. So we can read our G-code from the USB and from the Ethernet port, which is different from the DDCS version 3.1. So this is an upgrade. So with the DDCS version 3.1, we don't have this Ethernet port. We only read our G-code from the USB flash drive. The next thing you will notice is that we have the possibility of connecting two flash drives directly on the DDCS controller. Meanwhile, with the DDCS version 3.1, we have just one flash drive port. So the buttons are pretty much the same. But the difference that we have between the DDCS version 3.1, also with the DDCS version 4.1, is that we have a 7-inch display here, and the buttons here are very clicky. But we have basically the same layout. So this controller enables me to do a lot more. Take for example, it comes with this breakout board, which is different from what we have on our DDCS Expert. With the DDCS Expert, we have all these ports are connected straight on the controller. So with this DDCS version 4.1, if we want to connect our stepper motor drivers to this controller, we have to use this cable. We plug the female side to the breakout board, and then we plug the male side to the controller. And right there, our connection is directly established between the breakout board and the controller itself. So right here, if we now connect our stepper drivers to this port, we have port X for the X-axis, we have port Y for the Y-axis, we have port Z for the Z-axis, and we have port A for the 4th axis. And right here, we have connection for our input port, for our input, maybe limit switches, probes, and a lot more. And right here, we also have output ports. Here we connect our spindle and some other output components that we want to work on our machine. So at this point here, we have the power port. Here we have the power for the input-output devices, and we have the power for the controller itself. Just so you know, this controller works on 24 volt. So at this point here, we have 24 volts, so 24 and ground. So we have in this control box this USB flash drive with this cable. So to make this, to be able to read our G-code straight from the flash drive, we just need to connect this extension cable to the port behind. Once connected, we can now read our G-code straight from this flash into our machine. So another component that came in my box is this MPG. So this remote enables me to control my machine without having to touch the controller every time. We have on this MPG, we have the reset button, we have the enable pin, we have 2 dials. This one is to select the axis that we want to move or turn it off. And here we have the jog size, so the number of millimeters that the machine has to move on every click on the wheel. So we have this wheel here that enables us to control our machine. So for example, if I move my dial to the y-axis and then I move here to 10 millimeters, every time I click here, it's going to move 1 millimeter. It's going to move 10 millimeters, 10 millimeters, 10 millimeters, and then the machine will be moving. So to connect this to our CNC controller, there is a port here provided for it. So we have this port labeled MPG. You just have to come here, use this cable behind, and plug it on the MPG, on the controller itself. And let's use this opportunity to connect the breakout board to the controller directly. So, as you can see, our controller is all set up. What we can do now is to test it and see whether it works. To do that, we're going to connect a power supply to the controller. Here we have the 24 volt, 2 amperes, 20 amperes power supply, which we are going to use to power up this big guy. To do that, you have to take note. The positive here has to go to the positive and the ground has to go to the negative. If you reverse the roles, believe me, you're going to destroy this controller immediately. So in my case here, we have the pin cable connected to positive. So we have here positive. Let's go to 24 volt and connect this one. We can remove the pin directly and identify that 24 volt is this one. So we just plug it there and then we screw it in place. And then this yellow cable is connected to the ground and the ground is right here in the middle. So now that the power cables are connected, let's plug it back. The next thing we're going to do now is to plug the controller and see if it works. But before we go there, let's control again to make sure that we have no reverse polarities, because this will destroy your mode for at least a month. So everything is fine. We now turn the controller and then see how everything works. So let's power the controller. So you can see our controller is starting, which is the first sign to show that everything works. And you can see our MPG here is also powered. So you can see here that the layout, the display panel or the home screen of the controller is very much different from that of the DDCS Expert, and also very similar to the DDCS version 3.1. We have reviewed these two controllers on this channel, so I'm sure if you've watched that video, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to post the link in the description below. So as you can see here, our controller is on. So let's explore the control buttons. So we have here the X control buttons, we have the Y control buttons, we have the Z control buttons, and we have the E control buttons. This is for the 4th axis. Here we have function buttons. So we have here function 1, function 2, down to function 7. So the first thing to do when we get a controller like this is to configure the parameters to fit our machine. So we have to do that by clicking here on page. If you click on page, For the first time, it's going to ask you to enter a password. That password by default is 8 times. Then you press enter. So we want to get into parameters. So we now, on this page, we now go back again to parameters. You can see the functions here. We click on parameters, and here we are on the functions. As you can see, this machine, this controller has so many functions. We cannot scroll through one after the other. So the first thing is we want to enable our, for example, our MPG. To do that, we come, for example, we go to parameter types. When we click on parameter types, we have motor control parameters, which is the first function in this list of parameters. So we're going to scroll down to parameter types and go down to MPG and press enter. Here it linked us directly to the MPG parameters. We can decide that on every job we move 100 units per minute. So this is the place where you change those values. So we can change most of those values right here. As you can see, we have so many parameters. We have motor parameters, we have manual parameters. For these motor parameters, you configure how many steps your motor turns to move a millimeter. You enter the value there. Right here you have input parameters if you have sensors. For right here you have spindle parameters if you want to control your spindle using the controller software. And you have many parameters like home, you have limit switches, and a lot more. So we have system settings. Let's get in there and see what we can find. Here in system settings, we find, for example, let's turn off this beep. You can directly click here and press enter and disable the noise that this thing is making. We can go down there. So you can see these are IP address for the Ethernet port. If, for example, you want to control this machine on a network, this is where we set up our parameters. So these are the system settings. So you configure them based on your preferences. For example, here we have the language. You can change that too. But in my case, I can read and speak English very well, so I have no problem with that. So you can, if you look very well, you see that when I click on the x-axis, the parameters change. We have the machine coordinates, we have the absolute coordinates. So this is where they call the machine spindle head is currently located on the CNC machine, and here is this is the machine position relative to the limit switches, and here is where the machine is currently moving relative to the material that's currently working on. So when we click there, you can see that we go for the Y, you can see that we go for the Z, you can see that we go for the Z as well, for the A, You can see that. As you can see, the DDCS 4.1 comes in 3 axis and 4 axis. So if you want to go in for 5 axis, you have to move in for the DDCS Expert, which has a whole lot of functions. A whole lot of functions. And has so many input and output ports. One of the biggest limitations of this controller is the fact that it has just few input ports and just very few output ports. So if you need to control so many things on your machine, my recommendation is that you should go in for the DDCS Expert. That controller is good, very, very good. I used it for some time and I've explored it for a while. I'm not too sure. I've not used everything about it, but for the little ones that I've used, I can tell you that controller is amazing. But for me, I want to use the DDCS 4.1 for my machine. Number one, it's not that expensive. The DDCS Expert is more expensive compared to the DDCS version 3.1 and version 4.1. The reason why I did not go down for the DDCS version 3.1 is because I needed this functionality to connect, to be able to control my machine through my PC, and for that I can use the Ethernet port connected to this controller. I showed you that already. And also this one has some very, very good algorithm to do some complex machining. I just read about that. I've not experimented yet. I'm just reporting what I saw. Okay, for now I think that I'll be done with this video. I thank you all so much for watching. If you like it, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more. I'll see you next time on the next one. Goodbye.